sanctions, that is to say travel bans and asset freezes. Extra companies also being added to the list. Question remains is what tangible, concrete achievements has Europe seen from these sanctions? It appears that there's been no de-escalation at all in this crisis. With following the annexation of Crimea by Russia earlier this year. Russia explicitly saying that it was not interested in absorbing the south and eastern parts of Ukraine. And just weeks later, men dressed in green uniforms took to the streets, bearing no insignia on their uniforms, to urge that the eastern parts of the country split from Kiev's rule as well. German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier
also on the document signed, the press releases
has been
we are
in
issuing. We are now ready to move to
the region
this point with President Barroso and Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, following
seeking
the
to
meeting
broker
between the European Commission and the Ukrainian government that has taken place here.
Resolution
Give the floor to the
to
President.
the dispute.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank Prime Minister for coming.
Obviously, the presidential election coming up on May the 25th.
I'd like to thank you for taking the time. The difficult circumstances.
Frank-Walter Steinmeier says he hopes that that vote will be key in bringing out the country from this crisis. European Commission President José Manuel Barroso.
Indeed, our meeting was a very successful one. It was an unprecedented one. It is the first time the European Commission is meeting with another government outside of the European Union that is an association agreement with us. And I think we can say that there was a great convergence and the spirit was really friendly and constructive. The situation we are seeing in Ukraine is, of course, of the greatest concern, first of all, for the Ukrainian people, but I believe it's also a greatest challenge to Europe's security since the fall of the Iron Curtain and the fall of the Berlin Wall. It is therefore critically important that we stop the spiral of political and security escalation which we have seen over recent weeks. We need to build on diplomatic efforts agreed in the Geneva Statement and continued by the OSCE. The so-called referendum held in Ukraine's eastern regions is illegitimate and illegal. We will not recognize its outcome. The rights of national minorities and all persons need to be respected and upheld, but in the framework of a united and humanitarian Ukrainian state. I have made clear to Prime Minister Yatsenyuk that we support all efforts made by the Ukrainian government to promote a broad-based and inclusive national dialogue with all regions, in particular on the issue of constitutional reform. The Ukrainian system of government, the election of next president of Ukraine, and agreements with third countries are decisions for the Ukrainian people to freely decide without external interference. The doctrine of limited sovereignty should belong to history books, and history belongs to those that embrace the future, not to those who try to hijack it. From the very beginning, our policy regarding the crisis in Ukraine had a very important central objective: to support a viable, sovereign state, the Republic of Ukraine, to support a democratic, stable, united, prosperous country. This is our first goal, looking to the response to the crisis. And our joint meeting today was therefore part of our continued support to this stable, sovereign, democratic and peaceful Ukraine. We are acting like never before to deliver short, medium and long-term support measures worth 11 billion euros, measures that I have presented to you here in early March. Today, we have gone through this package and our joint European agenda for reform in detail, and we have identified ways to support the political, economic and financial stability of Ukraine. Specifically, the new state-building contract programme I just signed with Prime Minister, worth €355 million plus €10 million to support civil society. It will help the government of Ukraine to address short-term economic stabilisation needs and implement governance reforms in order to promote inclusive socio-economic development. The state-building contract includes concrete steps towards building transparency, fighting against corruption, and will help to increase the government's ability to respond to citizens' demands and citizens' needs. Another major deliverable of today's meeting was the conclusion of the Memorandum of Assistance to Ukraine that is necessary to give effect to the €1 billion macro financial assistance loan programme. The European Union will soon disburse the first package of €600 million of a total amount of €1.6 billion of macro financial assistance. These two specific actions come on top of a wide range of European Commission's assistance to Ukraine in other areas, such as the elimination of custom duties on goods originating from Ukraine, worth nearly €500 million per year in tariff reductions. The signature of the Memorandum of Understanding enabling gas flows from Slovakia to Ukraine, which was an important first step to diversify Ukraine's sources of gas supply. I was present in the signature of this memorandum in Bratislava recently. And the European Commission, as you know, is holding trilateral energy talks with Ukraine and Russia aimed at safeguarding the security of supply and transit of gas to and through Ukraine. Also, another point, the work conducted by the Commission endorsed yesterday by the Foreign Affairs Council to give effect to our policy of non-recognition of Crimea's annexation by Russia. And we are working together on many other areas. People-to-people contacts, where I am pleased to welcome the recent legislative steps for implementation by Ukraine of the Visa Liberalisation Action Plan. I have given Prime Minister Yatsenyuk my assurances of support in his efforts to move forward the visa liberalisation process as quick as possible. Aviation, where we expect to sign the European Union-Ukraine Common Aviation Area Agreement on the 5th of June at the occasion of the next Transport Council. Research, where I welcome the intention of Ukraine to be an associated participant in the Horizon 2020 research programme. Today, ladies and gentlemen, our focus has been on the support we can give to Ukraine. Let me add a word on the actions of Russia. Our message to Russia is to engage, to implement its part of Geneva Statement, to repeal the mandate of the Federation Council to use force on Ukrainian soil, and to act as a responsible stakeholder of our community of nations. Together with the Prime Minister before the executive-to-executive meeting, we have also analysed the situation there. My opinion is that it's still not too late if Russia wants to work constructively. I believe it is in the interest of everybody in Europe, including Russia, to seize these kind of actions and that we can turn back this page and that we can, in fact, come to a de-escalation, a real de-escalation on the conflict. Turning back now to the significance of today's meeting, after the signing in March of the political chapters of our association agreement, today's meeting shows that the European Union and Ukraine are jointly committed to work together towards Ukraine's political association and economic integration with the European Union. In our meeting with the government, we saw how important it is for the Ukrainian authorities, this association. And in fact, we are doing everything we can in our competence to speed up the implementation of the agreements already signed and also to conclude the agreements that are on the table. Closer association between the European Union and Ukraine was something we proposed, not imposed, to Ukraine and its people. And we remain committed to conclude the signature procedure of the remaining chapters of the association agreement as soon as possible after the presidential elections on the 25th of May. we received clear assurances from the Ukrainian side that it is exactly the goal of the Ukrainian authorities. As I have said in the past, this agreement was never an agreement against someone, but for something, for democracy, for prosperity and well-being of all Ukrainian people. And we continue to stand by these goals. The meeting today was a clear demonstration of our political will, and I really want to thank you very much, Prime Minister, not only for your personal engagement, but also for the very important contribution that your ministers gave to what I consider a very successful and constructive meeting. I thank you.
Mr. President, distinguished commissioners, let me once again thank you for your initiative to hold the meeting between the College and the Ukrainian government. You already unfolded the agenda that we discussed, and we really have a very comprehensive pro-European agenda. And the Ukrainian government is committed to implement and to execute the political part of this association agreement that was signed previously. And we will strongly recommend to the new president to pay his first visit to Brussels and to sign DCFTA and to accomplish the deal between Ukraine and the European Union. We commend your efforts to support Ukraine, both with political and economic means. We do really appreciate your personal efforts to support Ukraine with the energy efficiency and energy diversification. And the deal that we have reached in Slovakia on the reverse flow is a real deal how to support Ukraine in making Ukraine more energy independent. The key challenges my country is facing are as follows. The first one is the security. And we need to preserve peace and stability in my country. Mr. President, you have mentioned that we need to engage Russia, and we fully share your opinion. But it seems that Russia is already engaged in supporting Russian-led protesters and terrorists. We urge Russia to condemn them, to urge all these so-called protesters or really terrorists to leave and vacate the buildings, and to do everything they can to stabilize the situation in Ukraine. Russia will fail to make Ukraine a failed state. On the energy issue, Mr. President, we believe that we, together with the European Union, can facilitate a new energy policy. And we commend the efforts that are made by the European Commission and the European Union to implement a single energy policy. And probably in the nearest future, you will have an energy union. And Ukraine, which has ratified an energy charter and implemented the set energy package, could be a part of this energy union. We strongly believe that together with the European Union and our American partners, we can jointly operate and modernize Ukrainian gas transportation system. And this would be a new chapter in energy relations between the European Union and Ukraine as a country that ratified an energy charter, and one of the key suppliers, which is Russia. The key question for us is to have free and fair presidential elections. And we expect to have a new legitimate president. And any efforts to disrupt presidential elections in Ukraine will fail. And we highly appreciate your efforts to send observers to Ukraine and to support in getting the new president, which is to be freely and independently elected in Ukraine. Mr. President, let me thank you for our joint efforts to stabilize the situation in Ukraine, to implement the deal that we already signed, and to make Ukraine a pro-European state. And acting in concert, making one joint united steps, we will succeed together.
Thank you very much. We now have time for questions. We start with Ukrainian television. Go ahead.
Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk telling reporters in Brussels, as some media asking questions of both men, Yatsenyuk saying that Russia will fail to make Ukraine a failed state. He called on Russia to withdraw those so-called protesters, as he named them. He described them as terrorists. Stop them from destabilizing the situation in the east of the country.
First of all, we are and we're very clear on our deal with Russia. We sent to Russian Gazprom a pre-trial notification asking Russia urgently to revise the deal, which is to be based on the market conditions. If Russia rejects this, we will bring Russia to court in Stockholm. If I am not mistaken, less than 20 days left. And this is the final call to Russia to sit at the negotiating table and to find a solution. And we praise the efforts of the Commission and you, Mr. President, to have a trilateral meeting between the EU, Ukraine, and Russian energy ministers and commissioners. We sent an official offer to Russian Gazprom, saying that in case if Russia extends the price, which is still valid today, which was set starting with the first quarter of this year, $268 per 1,000 cubic meters, Ukraine in 10 days will urgently repay gas bill arrears. But first we need to sign the deal and only afterwards ask for arrears. Let me raise one very important issue. Russia annexed Crimea. Russia seized Ukrainian property. Tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, including state-owned oil and gas company, Chernomornaftogaz, which is black oil and gas company. They've stolen more than 2 billion cubic meters of Ukrainian natural gas. They've stolen our fields, they've stolen our companies, they've stolen our onshore and offshore drills. We will see Russia in court too. Let me reiterate once again, we are ready for the market-based approach. And Russia is to stop to use natural gas as another or a new type of Russian weapon, except a nuclear one.
First of all, let's remind ourselves why we are in this situation now. President Putin sent a letter to 18 heads of state and government of the European Union saying that because of their discussions with Ukraine, they will not be able, at a certain point in time, to continue to supply gas to Ukraine and also to the European Union. And as of the governments of the European Union have decided that the European Commission should answer on behalf of all the Union. And in a letter to President Putin, I proposed to have trilateral talks between the European Union, Russia and Ukraine. And I think these trilateral talks are a positive step in the right direction. I welcome the constructive attitude in the trilateral meeting so far. There was already a meeting at the level of the ministers, so on the European side was Commissioner for Energy. On the Ukrainian and the Russian side there were the respective ministers for energy. And yesterday there was one technical meeting as well. We are playing as Commission a central role, bringing the sides together, because we believe it is in the interest of all the sides, certainly also on the interest of Ukraine and also on the European Union, to try to put an end to this political controversies regarding energy, energy should not be used as a political weapon. The European Union's expectation is that both sides remain reliable, responsible, because they are supply and transit partners. And that is also in their very own interest. The trilateral talks are a forum to ensure this and to discuss matters of common interest. Further to yesterday's progress on technical level, we expect now that Russia takes in consideration the concerns of Ukraine, namely regarding the price. And if this is the case, Ukraine already said to us, Prime Minister told it to me, and just now publicly to you, that Ukraine is ready to pay the arrears if Russia plays by the rules in terms of the price that is asking Ukraine to pay. This is important, and it should happen an agreement before the end of May. I'm also very encouraged by Ukraine's commitment to transpose the third energy package as a means to ensure a sustainable energy market. The Prime Minister, once again today, has confirmed this willingness and the willingness of Ukraine to be as much as possible integrated in the European-wide system of energy and his adherence to the principles of the Energy Charter. We received with great satisfaction his offers for more involvement of European companies also in the Ukrainian system, because it is a way of precisely upgrading and modernizing the Ukrainian transit system. That is so important for all, I repeat, for all. First of all for Ukraine, but also for the supply country and for the recipient countries. I may also reiterate the need to ensure gas storage in Ukraine ahead of next winter. Now, we are now looking to a date for a next trilateral where the European Commission will be present through Commissioner Oettinger, and we are trying to organize it. We are confident that we can make further progress until the end of May, because, I repeat, it is in no one's interest, I really believe, no one's interest to aggravate these problems on the energy field, to use energy as a political tool. Russia, if it wants to be seen as a credible supplier, cannot play political games with energy. It will be to their disadvantage and to their economic interests. Ukraine also has all the interest in having its position as a transit country respected and functional. And of course the European Union countries that receive gas, paying for that, of course, they have the interest in having a constructive relation with the two other countries. So it is in this win-win, because I believe it can be a win-win, a logic that the European Commission is working with our partners in Ukraine and also discussing the issue very seriously with Russia so that this matter can come to a positive outcome.
Thank you very much. The next question for Reuters. Please go ahead.
Hi, Jan Struczewski from Reuters. A question to both the Prime Minister and President. Given the separatist activity in the east of the country, how can you make sure that the May 25th elections will be held in an uninterrupted way, that they will be credible? Thank you.
We are doing our best to have free and fair presidential elections. We consider that we can further stabilize situation in eastern Ukraine, because we still maintain stability in southern Ukraine despite the fact that Russia desperately tried to escalate and to trigger attention in southern Ukraine. We do acknowledge that there will be some spots, hot spots, where it will be difficult to hold free and fair elections. But the Central Election Commission is doing everything in order to provide an access to all Ukrainian voters to cast the ballot and to have a legitimate president in Ukraine.
On our side, I can only add that, of course, the European Union expects these elections to be free and fair according to international standards. And in fact, we are supporting the organization of these elections in that way. They are critically important for the future of Ukraine and also for the future of stability in this part of Europe. So we expect and we urge all parties not to destabilize those elections. They will win nothing if to destabilize. Of course, we are not ready to give a reward to those who are destabilizing, that's for sure. So those who try to destabilize the elections in Ukraine should understand that they are not going to score any points because of that. What is important now is to have the possibility of Ukraine organizing its elections in a stable manner. Ukraine is a sovereign country. Ukraine is a member of the United Nations. Ukraine has the right to organize presidential elections. And if someone destabilizes these elections, it's only delegitimizing itself and reducing the credibility they may have in any question. So our support is for free, democratic, fair elections, and we hope that they will exist. Anyhow, we will not give any kind of political reward or advantage to those that will try to destabilize the proper organization of these elections.
Thank you very much. The next question I saw was Christoph Schiltz. Go ahead. Welt. Over there to the right.
Good afternoon, Christoph Schiltz from Die Welt, Germany. Mr. President, Mr. Barroso, how would you gauge Mr. Putin's behavior in the last couple of weeks, and what might be your message from today to him?
I'm not here in a position to make comments because I also have a responsibility as President of the Commission. I have my own opinion. I know President Putin quite well. It is, in fact, probably the foreign leader outside of the European Union that I've been meeting the most in these last 10 years. I've met him at least more than 20 times. But I'm not going to use this opportunity now to make analysis, because I'm more focused now, not on the causes of what happened, not on the way it's going on, but on the future. I believe it is not in the interest of Russia, in the longer term, what is happening. I sincerely believe that. Russia, by the way, it's a multinational country. Russia is a country that also has problems of stability. And to support instability in a neighbor country, it's certainly not good for the future. It's also not good for the future of Russia to have this kind of confrontation with the European Union. The European Union is by far the most important economic partner of Russia, in trade and also in investment. If Russia continues with this kind of behavior, it will only contribute to a further isolation of Russia in the world, as we have seen with the condemnation of the international community following the annexation of Crimea. So my message to President Putin is that he should engage constructively. By that I mean de-escalate the situation, work constructively with Ukraine but also with the European Union, because this is a matter of concern to all of us in Europe. And if Russia wants to see its status, its international status recognized, it is not by this kind of behavior that it will get that recognition. On the contrary, because it will only aggravate the economic situation of Russia, and Russia will indeed be losing ground when compared to other economies and other countries. Other countries, without launching this kind of actions, are indeed stronger today than 20 years before, because they were focusing on economic growth, they were focusing on further opening of their economy, and now they count on the world. When a country, such a big country as Russia, one of the biggest countries in the world, indeed the biggest one in geographical terms, engages in this kind of destabilization to a smaller country, member also of Europe, it's of course not enhancing its status. It may appear so in the short term. It may please some to make some appeals to the nationalistic, let's say, sensitivities, but it's very, very short term. So I still believe that there is a possibility to engage positively, and the European Union, while supporting fully Ukraine, while showing the Russian authorities that there are some consequences for this kind of behavior, we have left our door open for this serious engagement of Russia, and we reiterate this today. I'm happy to reiterate this today, just after meeting President Yatsenyuk. I'm sorry, Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, because I know he is committed not only to his country as a patriot, as a Ukrainian patriot, but also to the stability in Europe. And because I know Ukrainians, most Ukrainians want, of course, to come closer to the European Union, but they don't want a situation of instability to be propagated generally in their borders and also overall in Europe. So this is my very clear message, without now entering in any comments about the motivations of the current leadership in the Kremlin.
Dernière question en français, Alain Franco, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, merci. Une question en français pour le Premier ministre Yatsenyuk, si vous le permettez. Oui, bon,
Question in French
radio-télévision
for
suisse. Je voudrais vous demander si vous soutenez la feuille de route
I'd like to know
du
if you
président Burkhalter de l'OSCE. Je ne crois pas que vous
support
êtes
the timeline of the OSCE.
donc clairement vous soutenez non pas les efforts qu'il fait, mais sa feuille de route, les 4 points
Support not the efforts,
qui
but
sont
the
dedans.
timeline
Et
of the
j'ai
plan
une question subsidiaire
of
parce
the
que
OSCE
une dépêche de
for
l'agence
the
France-Presse
presidential elections.
selon laquelle le ministère des Affaires étrangères russe
AFP is reporting that the Russian foreign minister
les rebelles en Ukraine respectent la feuille de route de l'OSCE.
has called on Ukrainian rebels to respect the timeline and plan
C'est libellé comme
of
ceci.
the OSCE.
Donc j'ai deux questions qui sont liées. Adoptez-vous la feuille de route de
So,
l'OSCE?
do you accept this
Et quelle est votre
timeline and
réaction
plan?
par rapport à cette déclaration russe? Merci.
And what's your reaction to these declarations by the Russian foreign minister?
We are doing everything we can in order to stabilize the situation in Ukraine, and we use all window of opportunity, including a nationwide dialogue between East and West. I've started this dialogue 2 months ago, and members of my government visited the entire eastern Ukraine with the clear messages how we should change the constitution, how we should devote powers to the regional authorities and to decentralize Ukrainian power, how we can and should protect a Russian-speaking minority and another minorities in my country, how to tackle corruption, how to fix economic and political and social problems. So we've launched a nationwide dialogue and this so-called Nation Roundtable. And we praise the support of everyone, including OSCE. Ukrainian government facilitated its own roadmap, and it's great if these roadmaps stick to each other. I'm a little bit concerned that Russian foreign minister copycats the agenda that was offered by OSCE. It seems to me that we are to stick to our common goals to stabilize the situation in Ukraine, and this is to be a Ukrainian-led and Ukrainian-owned process. Which one is next?
So, Louis, I don't understand. Do you endorse or not the roadmap of Mr. Burkhalter?
I can just only reiterate once again that the Ukrainian government facilitated its roadmap, and it's great that the roadmap that was proposed by the Ukrainian government has a number of similarities with the roadmap that was proposed by the chairman in office. But this is to be a Ukrainian-led and Ukrainian-owned process.
Thank you very much. This concludes our press point today. Thank you very much for your attention and your questions. There is a
Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk leaving the stage with José Manuel Barroso. He said that Russia will fail to make Ukraine a failed state, whilst President Barroso called on Russia and Ukraine to strike a deal on gas prices and outstanding arrears by the end of May. We return to the rest of today's top stories.
Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, thank you very much.
Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has been sentenced to 6 years